It's Harvey Jackson. Just going to get through some of the news articles that I dug up. Did some traveling over the last week. We went over to Regina area, southern Manitoba, and of course went to Saskatoon, and then went across through Swan River, and where there was not any damage from water and the lake. I had to make sure that I had a easier path to get out of there. But anyway, crops look good for sure. That's what Ed White said here, with the Canadian crops in best shape in a decade despite extreme weather monitoring firm says. So yeah, they do look good. But there's a lot of risk with all the moisture here as well that we've gotten in the past. Pulled a few plants in those travels, and they're not rooted very deep in especially in the wet areas, or wet earlier on. So it could be a bit of a concern if we don't get those showers to keep that plant alive, because you got a big crop mass in a lot of instances, and the roots are not exploring the soil as they get into reproductive stages. So there's not crop conditions this week, again next week, but just your cropland soil moisture conditions. There's a lot of green, and this green correlates pretty well to the crop conditions as well, but we'll see what it looks like next week. I would note it's going to be a lot more green and like for the crop conditions later. But just looking at what's behind here as well, there is some crop that's behind, and the oil seeds on the mass is 34% behind. But when you get into the northeast and central, because of the later planting, they're definitely behind a little bit more as well. This is a Reuters article, but just talking about the 10% tariffs that expired and now coming back on here. But
and as one tariff expires, another one gets put in its place. What's really happening is that when Trump first came into office, he imposed these broad global tariffs, 10 to 50% on every country in the world. The Supreme Court struck those down in February, and then Trump imposed a replacement tariff, a temporary tariff under a different law called Section 122, that was 10% for 150 days. Well, that 150 days ends today, and so these new tariffs, based on another law, a third law for forced labor. Well, the law is actually an unfair trade practices statute, but it's applied to countries for their alleged lax enforcement of forced labor bans. That these tariffs pretty much replicate everything that was there before, that was torn down or that is expiring, and is we're coming back to 10% or 12.5%. The one constant is that Trump's administration is just committed to doing this. They're going to find whatever tool they can to just continue to try to use tariffs as a means to force other countries to make concessions to try to reduce the U.S. trade deficit.
So I just wrote on there, EU and Canada are swarming the most because they both got in line to buy these EVs from China, and it's well known that they're using forced labor for some of that. So I had to shrink this down because there's a Canadian comment from LeBlanc down here. But anyway, it's broad brush. Basically, everybody that had those 150-day tariffs basically got tariffs put back on. So no reduction, and bring Canada to the table. Maybe we're going to actually sit down and have a talk about all of these tariffs and the USMCA as well. Russia hit 3 Ukrainian ports overnight. Oh, so yeah, some more conflict. It just keeps on going here. That conflict is definitely ramping up, and you can, as we know, the conflict in Iran, Israel, Saudi Arabia, you name it, is all Middle East, basically just continuing there as well. Quick look at the weather here. There's still western heat to start in August, so if crops are not burned up, they're definitely going to get there. You can see maybe a little bit of a reprieve in the center, but it still looks like there's going to be enough heat there for sure. Your probability of, and again, these extended forecasts, I call them, might have put them in the trash bin. Most of them are not that accurate, but at the very least, you do get some forward guidance, but most times they hit the trash bin. But it looks like North America might get some moisture just when they're ready to harvest. Of course, that's always fun. And then you look over here, and there's they might be slightly below in Europe there too, and that's planting season for a lot of their winter cereals and canola or rapeseed over there. So we'll see how that all plays out. Just your National Weather Service hazards map, you can see there's extreme heat right in the center, and then your heat warnings. What's the pink there? Red flag, so fire issues there as well. This is just your precipitation anomaly, so you can see that there's a anomaly still for the next seven days of deficient moisture, and that reaches, of course, over into the prairie provinces where most of the cropland is as well. Here's your soil moisture map. It is drying out, but then you can see some waves going across here. So I've seen some comparison to 2012. It doesn't really compare, and maybe it will in the fall, but these crops are well advanced and growing, and even I would say the plant technology can handle drought a lot better now than they did back in 2012 as well, especially the corn and soybeans. Quick look at the market here. I just wanted, I'd mentioned this to a few clients back in 2021, 2020 crop going. You could see that even with the market run up, where you could say that you didn't have a pause, but you could see that there was a trading range, about $100 there from the highs to lows going into the summer. By the time we got in through the fall, so there's still a trading range that we're going to see. And then if you look at spring till growing season as well, there's a trading range there as well. Canola is down $5.20 currently at $8.30. Soybean oil is down as well, 74 cents. Crude oil down $2.26 at just shy of the $90 barrel. The Brent is hovering just below the $100 barrel there as well. Diesel fuel $4.13, so it's above the $4 a gallon mark, but down 10 cents at the moment. Soybeans just shy of the $12.50, up 5.75. Spring wheat is up 7. Hard red winter is up 10, and Chicago's up 7.25. Milling wheat is up 1.25, and the Canadian dollar is basically unchanged. So just a quick look at it. I'm going to maybe look at it just slightly a different way here, but you can see that we blow through, and we're looking potentially to get to 161.8. That'd be 8.50 on futures, but we're down today, so we'll see. It's a Friday, so and then we'll have to see what kind of weather we get over the weekend as well. So here I'm just looking at it in Canadian dollars. So we only had one candle that got above. That was yesterday. That got above, or US dollars. So this is US dollar. Canadian canola priced in US dollars. So we'll have to see how that wants to keep running here. Then I looked at the 1 week chart, and of course this candle looks pretty good. We'll have to see how it closes out this week, but 850 is the next area, and then you look at the next area again, it would be about 9, just over 9, for true support and resistance resistance on the weekly chart. Here's your European rapeseed. So just blew through some of these support lines, but when you look at it farther back, before you don't see any resistance if we stick above this area until we get about $100 higher euro. So how that equates into Canadian, we'll have to see how that plays out as well. So soybean futures, trying to back up and have a look here too, but we're basically got to 61.8 on the daily chart on the continuous. Then you look back, support and resistance above, so we did get to it previously, but then you have to go all the way back to 2022 to get to these other values, and you can see the 61.8 extension gets you with a few resistance points above there. Soybean futures blew above this past here, and where does that take us? Well, it takes us all the way up to I didn't draw a very good line, but $14 mark on the continuous chart. Crude oil, just brutal. But here's your diesel fuel, and we are very close to the extension of the 161.8. It looks like we touched it and maybe retraced all the way back here, so we'll have to keep our eye on that one. Gasoline actually got to the full value there as well on the continuous, or sorry, on the September. Canadian dollar, it had its fade. Now it looks like it's going to maybe try to get some support here. Wheat, no, I'm zooming way back here. We're at the same value that we were just a beginning in spring, but now we've got values above here. So we're looking at 767, and then next value basically is going to be your bottoms of these here, which is another resistance area. So that's another $1.30 higher, and then you've got the peaks that are going to be the other area that you're going to have resistance before if it keeps on going up here. Here's your Kansas. So you're looking next area, really it's either right here, somewhere in the middle here, but let's call it $8.50, and then got some more range all the way up to $9.10 or 12. Chicago, you can see that if you're looking at the same kind of thing there's got some previous lows resistance, and then you can start picking your highs there as well. Corn futures, nice run up here, or a quarter of the way back there to get to the highs, so we'll have to see if we can get there. The warm weather over there in the U.S. is not helping. Here's your cattle futures. So we blew through there a while ago, so the next real next level of support will be way down here, the previous low that got made back in November. We do have a cattle on feed report, I think it is today, so that'll be after the close, and we'll have to see how those numbers come out and whether it's going to impact the market here as well.